At the Farmhouse by E.F. Benson. Narrated by Trevor O'Hare. The dusk of a November day was falling fast when John Aylesford came out of his lodging in the cobbled street and started to walk briskly along the road which led him eastwards by the shore of the bay. He had been at work while the daylight served him, and now, when the gathering darkness weaned him from his easel, he was accustomed to go out for air and exercise and cover 6 miles before he returned to his solitary supper. Tonight there were but few folk abroad, and those scudded along before the strong southwesterly gale which had roared and raged all day, or, leaning forward, beat their way against it. No fishing boats had put forth on that maddened sea, but had lain moored behind the quay wall, tossing uneasily with the backwash of the great breakers that swept by the pier head. The tide was low now, and they rested on the sandy beach, black blots against the smooth, wet surface which somberly reflected the last flames in the west. The sun had gone down in a rack of broken and flying clouds, angry and menacing with promise of a wild night to come. For many days past, at this hour, John Aylesford had started eastwards for his tramp along the rough coast road by the bay. The last high tide had swept shingle and sand over sections of it, and fragments of seaweed, driven by the wind, bowled along the ruts. The heavy boom of the breakers sounded sullenly in the dusk, and white towers of foam appearing and disappearing showed how high they leaped over the reefs of rock beyond the headland. For 1/2 mile or so, slanting himself against the gale, he pursued this road, then turned up a narrow, muddy lane sunk deep between the banks on either side of it. It ran steeply uphill, dipped down again, and joined the main road inland. Having arrived at the junction, John Aylesford went eastwards no more, but turned his steps to the west, arriving, 1/2 hour after he had set out, on the top of the hill above the village he had quitted. Through 5 minutes' ascent would have taken him from his lodgings to the spot where he now stood, looking down on the scattered lights below him. The wind had blown all wayfarers indoors, and now in front of him the road that crossed this high and desolate tableland, sprinkled here and there with lonely cottages and solitary farms, lay empty and greyly glimmering in the wind-swept darkness, not more than faintly visible. Many times during this past month had John Aylesford made this long detour, starting eastwards from the village and coming back by a wide circuit, and now, as on these other occasions, he paused in the black shelter of the hedge through which the wind hissed and whistled, crouching there in the shadow as if to make sure that none had followed him, and that the road in front lay void of passengers, for he had no mind to be observed by any on these journeyings. And as
Sample complete. Ready to continue?